housekeeping rules. I mean, everybody will be muted so that there is no, distraction if the main person is talking, if somebody, and if there's any questions, just use the chat box available to put your questions inside, and Reinhardt will moderate then and come to your question to the point where it's the most appropriate, so that the conversation is nice, and in the beginning it's kind of not a mess that everybody's talking around. Otherwise, a conversation, even virtually, is not going to work.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Furthermore, you also have kind of the possibility to raise your hand, like say, and as soon as this is happening, we're gonna have a list. Yeah. Raise your hand, even with the functions on Zoom, and we will moderate it and come to your question. Just be aware, when you're in the chat box, there's the possibility to chat to everybody and just to one specific person, like to Reinhardt or to me. So just be aware, if you want to have a question for everybody in the community, just see to everybody. It says that you put in the question for everybody.
Good.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you today?
Very well. Very well.
Cool, thank you.
Wonderful to see so many happy faces joining us with their cigars. Please feel free to type in the chat box where you're joining us from, which cigar you brought for today. And as Sabine already mentioned, we're also live on Instagram. We're also live on Facebook via the Cigar Journal page, and I'm also live streaming. We're going to mute all the microphones, and please feel free to raise a hand. Let us know in the chat box if you have any questions so that we can unmute you and speak up anytime, please. I would also really like to welcome our special guests, which is, of course, Sam Reuter and Klaas Kelner from Davidoff for today. And yeah, please give these two gentlemen a big hand, a big round of applause. I'm super happy that you're here joining us.
Thank you.
So we had somebody joining a screen. Now, just to let you know, you can also, in the top right of your window, can switch between the speaker window and sort of a grid window. So you will either have the one person speaking at the very moment in a large format, or you can have all the different participants next to each other. And with that, and without further ado, again, welcome everybody and light up.
Good idea.
So Sam and Klaas, welcome to your side. What cigars did you bring for today?
Well,
I want to start.
Yeah, go ahead, Klaas.
No, you start. You start.
So I thought today for the special occasion, I choose an Aniversario, Davidoff Aniversario, but I chose a number one. I know it's not existing anymore on the market since 2016, but it's a nice Grand Double Corona taking 2 hours, and I thought these 2 hours with you guys are most beautifully filled with this cigar.
On my end, I am having a big debate here. I have 2 cigars in front of me. And normally I choose a cigar and then I pick what I'm going to be pairing with. But in the Dominican Republic, where I am right now, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. And when I smoke Yamasa, I normally pair it with something like bourbon or something that has a little bit more sweet, more spicy because of the notes that the Yamasa has. But it's 11 o'clock in the morning and it might be too early to start with bourbons and different whiskeys. So I'm actually going to be drinking a nice Presidente beer. And because of that, I think I'm going to move on to the Yamasa later. But I'm actually gonna go with you, Sam, and I just cut my anniversario number 3. So instead of number 1, I'm gonna be having an anniversario number 3. It's a little bit shorter, but a little bit more powerful.
Yes, good.
I brought a signature number 2 today. It's a very special cigar to me, and I have a truly unique story with that because it was one of the first ever cigars that I get to smoke. When I turned 18, I put on my nicest suit that I had. I went to a bar and thought I would have a fancy cocktail. And it was a super old school American bar with an elderly gentleman sitting at the piano playing some live jazz. And there was a guy seated next to me at the bar, and he lit up a cigar. And I was watching in awe. And then he asked me, "Son, did you ever smoke a cigar?" And I hadn't. And he offered me a signature number 2. And that was the very first cigar that I fondly remember. So it sort of has a special place in my heart. And for me, it's also quintessential Davidoff. So I thought I'll bring that today. Because I also think storytelling is something that Davidoff always does really nicely, realizing that it's not just about the cigar. I mean, there's so much behind it with all the tobaccos and all the craftsmanship that goes into it. But it's also about the stories behind and creating experiences. I wanted to ask some of your best stories that you have with the cigars. And I know, Klaas, you're pretty fond of that.
I can tell you, I don't have a particular story with Annie number 3, but I can tell you the story of when Annie number 3 came into existence. If you go back to the 90s, before Davidoff consolidated 2 different lines. So there used to be the anniversario line, and then there used to be the special line. And the anniversario line was created for Zino's 80th birthday. But when it moved to the Dominican Republic, the special line was also created on the side. Nowadays, both lines have consolidated, and you have both of them living under one line. But when the special line came into existence, I'm talking special R, right? In the factory, the biggest ring gauge that was being produced was the ring gauge 48. And when 1991 came along, Robustos were becoming a thing, and Davidoff tasked my father with creating a 50 ring gauge, which was a big deal at the time. You know, huge cigar, 50 ring gauge. Nowadays we have 60s and way more. And they didn't want to call it Robusto because Robusto was just, everybody was calling their cigars Robusto. And my father asked Rene, Dr. Schneider, so why don't we gotta make it special? So why don't we just call it Special R? And you know what? Let's make it a little bit different. Everybody's doing it 5 inches by 50. So let's do it 4 7/8 of an inch by 50. That's gonna make it special. So we actually cut off 1/8 of an inch and gave you the Special R. And when we decided to come up with other cigars along the line, the Special B came into play, Special Brincoso. The Special T came into play, the Special Torpedo. And it was pretty special because at the time there was no mold. So they were pressing the cigar with paper. And that's why it got that weird cone effect that kind of just pans out. And then 2 years later, we want to make a Toro, you know, an even bigger cigar than the Special R. But the Special T is already taken up. So what are we going to do? And that's how the name came for Anniversario number 3. It actually has the blend of the special line, but it has the name of the Anniversario. So you could actually say that is the Anniversario number 3 is like the blend of those 2 lines coming together. So because of a mistake or running out of words or letters, we actually called it Anniversario number 3 instead of a Special Toro. End the story.
Sam, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you actually got into the world of cigars with Klaas Peter, of course. He being son of the industry icon, Henky Kelner, it was maybe a different story than for us from the middle of Europe, right?
Yes, so that's true. I'm not born in a cigar family, although my uncle enjoyed very much cigars. So I started when I was 17 years old, my first cigar. And so what I really enjoyed was also the lifestyle around it. You know, like you were like in good partnerships, you know, like good friends, enjoying a cigar, you enjoy whiskey with it. And I also love the world of whiskey. And when I did hospitality management in Switzerland as a study. And always during my breaks, I was always enjoying every day another cigar. Like I bought some books and really like reading about each cigar and trying each cigar. From Cuban to Dominican, at that time, not many Nicaraguan ones, but still a few. And it was just my passion. And when I was my last hotel in hospitality was the Ritz in Paris, and I was sending my CV to Davidoff, and he replied within 2 weeks saying that they would be interested, that I would join them. And then my journey started in March 2009 with Davidoff, and since then I'm very happy. I can smoke more cigars I ever imagined, and really enjoying them. I think that's the most important point about it. It's really about taking your time for each cigar, and also when I leave my cigar in my ashtray, I always say thank you for all the people involved in the process of crafting this beautiful cigar. And yes, and so now I'm also then within Davidoff global brand ambassador, but also developing all the new blends with our teams in Dominican Republic and Honduras, and also responsible for quality of our cigars. So if anybody has anything about quality, please let me know, because we want to be the best when it comes to quality.
Klaas, growing up around the Kelner family, with everybody being involved with tobacco or cigars in one way or another, did it ever feel like a chip on your shoulder, or something that made it a bit harder for you even in that industry?
To be honest, it felt very natural. In my family, one of the running jokes is that we're not very creative. Of course, we're creating cigars and creating tobacco, and you would consider that very creative. But we always joke that we're not very creative because we always do exactly the same thing. Tobacco, 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 tobacco. And nobody really verges from there. And to go back, I'm technically third generation. My grandfather was from Holland, and him and his three brothers moved to Dominican. Two brothers moved to Dominican Republic, two brothers moved to Brazil, and they all worked in tobacco. And then my father worked in tobacco, and my uncles, all of them worked in tobacco. All my cousins worked in tobacco. And you could say that, yes, there's always pressure because you always want to be better. You always want to improve. You always want to carry the legacy of what a family stands for and represents. But there was never a pressure as in you have to do it. It's if you want to do it. But when you're born in the industry, you love it no matter what. You learn to love the product. You learn to love the environments that it creates. You learn to love the people. And obviously it's super beautiful because I believe that every time somebody's having a cigar, you're at the same level of that person. You are enjoying a cigar with another person, you guys are one and the same at that time. And nothing like social differences or race or country or whatever, monetary, none of that matters at that moment that you're enjoying a cigar with. So I really, really enjoyed it. And then I just naturally went into it. I've been enjoying cigars since I was very young. And my father always asked me if I wanted to be part of it. Every time it was my birthday, he would ask me, Klaas, are you sure you want to be in cigars? Yes, Dad. Klaas, now you're 15. Are you sure you want to be in cigars? Yes, Dad. And when I was 17, he asked me one more time, he said, Klaas, are you sure? Last time I'm going to ask you. He said, yes, Dad, I want to be in cigars. And he says, okay, so this is what you're going to do. And he just wrote down a list of the things I would have to do so that I could learn everything from the bottom up. And now I'm here. Still in tobacco, and hopefully even my future sons and daughters go into tobacco. It's what we do. Not very creative.
I I really like the thought, Klaas, and what you mentioned, that cigar really makes people equal, and that we all get to share and embrace a wonderful product, and we're all sort of the same, whether it's the blue collar worker or the multimillionaire, right? Like us, you obviously, and Sam, of course, we're all a young generation of apasionados, and sometimes cigars feel a bit like a very high-end luxury sort of thing, and you need to be in a certain position to get to enjoy that. Did you also realize that there's different forms of cigar culture and different audiences appreciating and enjoying cigars when you're in the US in comparison to Europe, for example, or Asia and other parts of the world?
Well, I'm pretty sure that both Sam and I can agree that when we travel, one of the biggest things that shock us is probably the cultural differences. Even though we're all one and the same in regards to cigars, when we travel from one country to the next, or when we receive visitors down in the Dominican Republic, you have to be very mindful of the culture and how they are. Some are a little bit more close and you can more touchy. Some require a little bit more distance. But even in the way that they smoke cigars, it changes. I am predominantly in the United States market, where Sam is in the European market and also in Asia. And the cigars that we are focusing on sometimes varies. And when I go from store to store, it also varies. In the United States, it even varies by state. And when I go down to Texas, it's normally bigger, bolder cigars. When I'm up in the northeast of the US, they love Griffins, they love the white label Davidoff, they go for the milder ones in many cases. There's always rules to the exception, but every single state is different.
Mm-hmm. I can, because when you think about a global point of view, so one of my mentors was Avo Ovesian, which I think you all know. And he was always talking about friends, like cigars being your friend. And so basically, when you enjoy a cigar, you have to listen to your friend. He tells you the story. And when you enjoy cigars with different cultures, it's like having different friends, But at the end, everybody's enjoying the cigar, and everybody's like in line with the pleasure of the cigar. What makes it so special? What is the occasion? What do you remember of the cigar? And I think that's globally. I think it's the same. Of course, as Klaas said, there's cultural differences. Maybe in Asia, the people are enjoying this maybe a little bit differently than in the US, than in Europe. You have also different cigars in the market that you compare with. But I think at the end, it's really a natural product for pleasure, And I think it's always so great how many new friendships you can make, how many new friends you encounter, and at the end, how many beautiful moments you just spend with them.
Wonderful. So we have a couple of questions already in the chat box. One of them, Klaas, when did you smoke your first cigar?
Okay, a question to that. I was actually typing for that answer. Petra, do you want the socially responsible answer, the legal answer, or do you want the real answer? Because those are very different answers. If, of course, in the Dominican Republic, you grew up in it, it's part of your family. The real answer. I have memory, my first memory of asking my father to taste a cigar. I didn't smoke a full cigar. But my first memory of asking my father to taste a cigar, we were at the dining room table. It was about 8-10 people. I don't really remember who was there, but everybody was enjoying a cigar. The aroma was pleasant. And I was 4 years old when I first asked my dad to taste a cigar. Yep, 4 years old. Now, I could say that the first full cigar I had in my memory is probably the Grand Cru number 3, because I grew up listening to my father do seminars, and many of his seminars are based around the Grand Cru line. And I was 7, 8, 9 years old, sitting in the back of the seminar and actually paying attention to the seminar, smoking, enjoying the full cigar. now I don't think I really started enjoying cigars on a regular basis until I was 16 or 17. It wasn't really until 16, 17, I was like, okay, from now on, this is going to be on a regular for me. So, I don't know if that scares some people or impresses some people. You let me know.
Maybe good follow up on that. Oystein, you had a question. I'll unmute you. Please ask your question.
Yeah, the question, can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah,
Yes.
very well.
Yes. The question was to Klaas whether, and later I realized maybe he's working for Davidoff itself. I was asking if he was working with his father at Tabadom or even junior at the KBF.
My brother is independent right now. He worked in Davidoff and Tabadom for 21 years. Now he has KBF, a boutique factory. All my brothers and sisters at some point have worked for Davidoff. Right now, I'm the only one that works in Davidoff. You could say with my father, but really I'm stationed in the United States. So I'm actually senior brand ambassador for the United States. And then I also cover Latin America as well. So I do events in Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, and things like that. And then I'm in Dominican Republic from time to time, especially during the crop season.
Okay, thank you.
Klaas, how did your relationship with your father change when he suddenly wasn't just your dad anymore, but also sort of your boss?
My father became my best friend at the age of 17. Interestingly enough, he's never been my boss, so I've never had to report to him. So that keeps things very friendly. I call my dad every single day. I've always had other bosses, but it's always good to talk with my dad and see what he thinks. He has a lot of experience under his belt, a lot of history of good and bad experiences. So it's always good to consult with him different things. But I don't consider my dad a boss. I consider him more of a best friend and a mentor. So I'm pretty blessed in that sense.
Sam, you also mentioned that you had Avo as sort of a mentor. What made that relationship special to you, and what does like Avo mean to you and your personal development in the cigar industry?
Well, you know, when I started in March 1st, 2009, I had just 2 weeks after I had the Avo tour in Switzerland. And so my first time I met Avo was on the airport here in Zurich. And, you know, there comes this gentleman that you read so many stories about with the hat on, the white suit. And you think like, oh my God, I was so nervous. And then, but he was so relaxed, you know, he had like a gift that he can really kind of see through you, you know, he knows exactly how you are. He had a very good knowledge for people. And it was just all natural, you know, we started like talking, enjoying cigars together. And then I heard all the stories from him. And I just felt like, you know, like a little boy listening to one of your I don't know, like idols, you know. And it was just like yeah, and he showed me the way into the cigar industry, like with you know, how to enjoy the cigar, how to talk to people, you know, how to just sit there. And I think Avo was the person who really enjoyed every moment in his life, you know. And that was very great school, like a life school for me. And yes.
We also had a historical question in the chat box. Ben, maybe you want to come up with that one.
Yes, it's some question because I never got a real answer to that. As you all know, Davidoff left Cuba for his production. I think it was 89, and then went to the DR to have the production at the family from Klaas, from the Kelners. So what was the real reason for Davidoff to leave Cuba? That I wonder who has an answer to that. I have some suggestions, but maybe the guys from Davidoff, they know the real reason.
Yes, so basically, you know it started in 1946 with the Chateau line, but actually in 1966 Cuba Tobacco came to Zino Davidoff saying that, look, are you willing, or we want to, because of your involvement in promoting Cuban cigars on international level, we want to put your brand on our cigars. And Zino at this time, he said, yes, okay, but I want to have the best quality. I want to know all the distributions. I want to be involved in packaging and all these quality criteria, which was for him extremely important. Now, over the years, this quality criteria wasn't met anymore, you know. So especially, like you said, the end of the 80s, the tobacco quality wasn't right to Zino standards. And he said, look, I don't want to pay anymore for these cigars. And at this time, we were looking for different origin and different partner that we found with Henke in the Dominican Republic. So it was really about the quality of the tobacco that Zino wasn't anymore satisfied with.
You want to go with the famous story of burning the cigars. That's always a fun story. In the warehouses in Switzerland, there was over 100,000 cigars that were defective, and I mean they were not be able to sell those cigars. The quality was not there. So Dr. Schneider at the time, very smart man, decided to make a press release out of it, and it was like free press, you know, free marketing, and he destroyed all the cigars because he's like, these are not of quality, I have to destroy them. And interestingly enough, when they moved to Dominican Republic, the first order was to the United States, so it wasn't to Switzerland, but it was the first order in January 1990 was an order of 100,000 cigars, really 120,000 cigars, to substitute the cigars that they had destroyed, which is pretty cool.
When it comes to creating music,
is that a good enough answer? It is.
Sorry, Klaas, I didn't get the last sentence that you said.
So was it a good enough answer, I assume?
Oh, for sure. Another question for you when it comes to creating new cigars, and maybe that's interesting between the two of you, Sam, with you being in the head office and Klaas in the Dominican Republic. How do you go about creating new lines or new limited productions even? How do you start the whole process?
So the process always starts with a concept. So basically, you know, we are so lucky, are we in a very good position to have our crop to shop philosophy. So basically we have the vertical control about everything. So we can start with the idea and we know the process until the cigar in store. So we have in global marketing based on, let's say, trends, based on consumer feedback, based on market insights, we then create a new initiative, being it a limited edition, being it a new cigar line, depending on what are the needs in the market and what are the needs also to, when we look at our assortment, what can be in there that we don't have today. And basically out of this, I then write like a cigar brief to our master blenders, explaining a bit the background of the initiative, explaining the formats, giving the quantities, maybe giving some hints or some points about what do we want in the cigar. Do we want to have tobacco from different origins? Do we want to have only Dominican tobacco? And then basically our master blends are sending me samples to Basel, to our headquarters, and out of these samples I then I have an internal tasting panel with 12 members that we test the cigars always against the concept. Sometimes it requires a little bit more. So I'm sending out the cigars to an external tasting panel to get more feedback on it. You know, we had this, when we launched Nicaragua in 2013, we never launched Nicaraguan line, so we haven't been sure, are we now on the right path? Because at the time, Nicaragua, the benchmark was very high. And so we were testing it with a lot of consumers, a lot of aficionados, and really selected the best voted blends that you still have today in the market. So it always depends, but it always starts with the concept, and then the cigar is linked to the concept.
I want to add something to that. The way that Sam explained is the correct way when you are in such a big company like this. But sometimes starting with the concept is it's company, you know, it's marketing department talking. But what I like to sometimes add is there's also the inverse that happens. Sometimes in the factory or in the farms, or it's Manuel Peralta with a new seed, or Eladio with a new blend, or my father, for example, with the big famous example of Yamasa, finding a new farm, a new zone, a new area. Sometimes there's inspiration that happens, you wake up and you make a new blend. And sometimes you find that you do an agricultural investment and innovation in the farm. And we can create something new with this. And when we can create something new, then we pitch it to the marketing team in Europe. And I like to believe that that's where the magic is sometimes, because it can be both. Sometimes when you come up with something new and exciting, you can definitely show the world something that is innovative, that can change the world. I like to believe that Yamasa was one of them.
Could you probably go a little bit deeper into the process of creating the three dark lines that were probably less typical expression of Davidoff at that moment in time, because most of the people always associate Davidoff with the white labels?
Mm. Yes, so as I said before, it was 2013. Basically, in 2000, like before 2012, when in 2012 we really established like a global marketing department, and soon we figured out, look, we have our core cigars like really famous for the elegance, sophistication, you know, being in the market for years, and we thought, you know, why don't we introduce something new that is a little bit maybe more vibrant, a little bit more newish, like discovery, and that's why we launched then in 2013 Nicaragua. We said, okay, let's make it so different and even change the ring of the cigar, be black, and you know, like opposite of white being black. So really to show also on the cigar, look, we want to go different ways. We want to focus on discovery. You know, we want to provide our consumers a new taste experience, and that was the main goal behind why the black pillar. And soon we follow with Davidoff Escurio, whereas we experienced with Brazilian tobacco. I don't know if some of you know, but we had in the 70s, we had even a Davidoff Brazil with a green ring on it. But then we had the 2015 Escurio, and then as Klaas just mentioned, we had the Yamasa being the latest line in our black pillar. And again, really to give you new taste directions, new flavors, new strength profiles, and just being a bit different.
We did a lot of looking into the feedback that we get. When I travel from store to store, there's always certain things that people say about what they believe Davidoff is. Everybody always throws out the quality. The quality, price point, the quality versus price point. Is it worth it? They always say that Davidoff quality is top notch. Now, some people say Davidoff is a little bit expensive. I personally think it's worth it. It's definitely an accessible luxury. But another thing that people would say, like back in 2000, early 2000, they would say Davidoff is only Dominican. Davidoff is only Dominican. And when we went out with the black pillar or the discovery line, the black label, as some people call it, we are able to give new taste profiles. We're able to discover new flavors, new regions, new tobaccos, and definitely show the world that we are not only one thing, but we can deliver quality and consistency no matter the region. And I think that's one of the things that we have been able to prove with these new lines and these new origins.
Yeah, but I have to add, it wasn't an easy process, because, you know, being used to Dominican tobacco and work with Dominican tobacco, it was for our master blenders quite a challenge, you know, to then create 100% puro Nicaragua. I can still imagine how many times we had to say, no, it has to be 100% Nicaragua, not like a little bit, because then people say, oh, you tried, but you're not there yet. And but I think it was at the same time was an eye opener. I remember after the Davidoff of Nicaragua, we had so many blends that we created with Nicaragua tobacco, with different origins tobacco. We have around 7 different origins that we can play with, and that was really like all the blends that came out was like, oh, fantastic.
I remember that when the first time I moved to the United States, I graduated from college in December 2013. I started in the factory full-time January 7th, 2014. And I did a whole year in the factory as an intern. I basically jumped from one department to the other, 1 month here, a couple of weeks here, another month here. And then the United States asked me to move. They offered me a job in the United States, and I became junior brand ambassador back in 2015. And I remember I was sitting in my dad's office, and my dad gives me a cigar, and he says, "Tell me what you think about it." And I start kind of describing it, and I'm like, "I don't know what this is. This is not a Davidoff cigar." And he says, "No, it is a Davidoff cigar. It has Brazilian tobacco in it." I'm like, "Well, I don't know if I like this in particular. Like, it doesn't remind me of Davidoff. It's completely different." And he's like, "Well, you're moving to the United States. All you're going to be doing for the next year is promoting Davidoff Escurio, so you better learn to like it." And that's how I was introduced to Davidoff Escurio. It was completely different. It was completely out there, something brand new, very spicy, sweet in the front of the palate. Not the typical Davidoff blends that we had before that.
In the meantime, I just wanted to say hello to all the other guys who joined us, because we have a lot of people who joined us later on. Welcome. Glad you're all here.
Hello,
at the
everybody.
live launch. If you have any questions, please raise a hand or put them in the chat box. We'll make sure that you get to ask your question to the guys. Klaas, back to what you said. How well received was the cigar then when it came to the market, and when certainly that new expression of Davidoff was introduced?
In particular to Davidoff Escurio, it changes, again, like back to the same question from before, it changes from region to region. Some shapes perform better than others, depending on the region. I know that the last 2 shapes that we have had, the Perfecto shape and the Corona Gorda, these shapes have performed very, very well. But it's like I travel from one state and then I travel to another state, and some states don't like it as much. Some states love it. I have gone to Italy a couple times since we've launched Escurio, and they absolutely love it over there. They tell me that it reminds them of Toscanos. So it's one of those cigars that it is not for the typical Davidoff cigar aficionado, the one that is core line, that has been around forever. I mean, they might like it, but it doesn't remind them of them. And we're completely fine with that. It doesn't have to be a home run in every single corner of the world, because what we're trying to do is offer different profiles of flavor so that different people can discover the Davidoff quality and the Davidoff consistency in a cigar that they enjoy.
So when you say a typical Davidoff cigar smoker and your traditional or classical white label expression of Davidoff, what would you say makes that Davidoff expression unique?
Basically, these cigars are made with predominantly 3 types of tobaccos. You have your Olor Dominicano, it's your traditional Dominican tobacco. You have San Vicente, which is one of the tobaccos that produces the moisture in the palate, creates a lot of balance, tones down any aggressiveness. And then you have the Piloto Cubano, planted in the Dominican Republic, that is, you're basically this tobacco that is giving the intensity in the back of your palate and giving you the power, the flavor that you need in those bitter notes. In my opinion, the Davidoff traditional blends are, I actually asked Eladio Diaz this like 2 days ago, which is your favorite cigar? And he says, well, I love the Aniversario line because with these 3 tobaccos, I can create perfect balance. And this is something that Davidoff has always stood for, is perfect balance. But when you analyze the 3 tobaccos, each one of the tobaccos stimulates in one area of the palate. So your Olor Dominicano is very front of the palate. Your San Vicente is on the sides, and then your pilotos in the back. So you have one tobacco acting in every area of the palate, and it produces this sense of just nice smoothness in your palate. There's no overposition of flavors, no areas of your palate fighting, and it's just smooth, it's creamier, and it has these lighter wooden tones, these creamy tones. There's not a lot of pepper, not a lot of spice. These are your traditional, more or less, Davidoff flavors. Anything you want to add, Sam?
No, I think, you know, it's not because I'm working for Davidoff, but I think we have a cigar for each palate in our assortment. You know, we have, like you explained, you have the classical ones that are very elegant, which I love in the morning or now in the afternoon. And you have also like a little bit the stronger ones, different flavor ones, you know, that you can prefer after a stronger meal or like a heavy meal. You know, I think we have the iconic pillar with Sir Winston Churchill behind it, you know. So I think we have a great range that we have came out with in the last 8 years that basically is satisfying each palate. And you have always the Davidoff quality. You always have the expertise of our master blender to make sure that each tobacco is harmonizing with each other in the perfect way. And I think it's just a beautiful assortment we have. I don't know, is there somebody who out there who thinks differently, or you enjoy it, or you think the same, that we have a cigar for each palate, or what is the favorite cigars that you guys are enjoying?
I think that also a lot of people might have a misconception about white labels in particular being light cigars, and we often get a little confused when it comes to strength in terms of nicotine impact that you have, but then complexity and a quite nuanced variety of different aromas and flavors is a totally different story.
Exactly. And I think well, I think how the cigar reacts to you or to your body, you know, I think that's all up to you. We can tell you, look, those are the flavors that we think they are in there. There's the strength level, but I think everybody should be listening to his own palate, you know, like if this cigar is too strong, okay, leave it, or maybe enjoy it after a heavy meal, or, you know, when your stomach is full. If you think, like, for example, the Davidoff Core is a mild cigar, well, enjoy it in the morning when you walk the dog, or when you just walk when the nature is waking up. It's not a mild cigar. It gives you beautiful flavors that you can notice straight away. And that's what I'm always saying, you know, it's not like saying this cigar should be your favorite cigar, but it all depends on your palate, you know. And I really encourage you, yes, read when you read cigar magazines, very important, read them, get your opinion about it, and just go and buy the cigar and enjoy it yourself, and think what you really think about the cigar.
There's a lot of misconception of what is power or intensity versus flavor. And some people think that a cigar needs to be very powerful so that it produces flavor. And like you guys were saying, Davidoff is able to produce nuances of flavors with every puff, you know, and there's little flavors hidden between the flavors, and we are able to create little layers of complexity in your palate with lighter tobaccos. One of my favorite tobaccos to blend with is the seco tobaccos from the bottom of the plant. They have good body, they have great quality, great elasticity, and bigger leaves too. That's just, doesn't have to do with flavor, but the fact that they're also bigger leaves is good in many ways. But you're able to create nice, smooth cigars. One of my favorite examples is the Winston Churchill line, the original, the white one. This one is composed of 7 tobaccos, but when you look at the blend, they're all seco tobaccos. They're all from the bottom of the plant. And this is not a powerful cigar, but this is a very flavorful cigar, which will never bore you.
So what are the different aspects that you're looking for when assembling a blend and choosing certain tobaccos and leaves? like in terms of probably acidity and getting your juices going on the palate, like your saliva. I know you're pretty fond on that. What are these aspects you're looking for?
Sam?
Well, I think you're right, Reini. You know, at the beginning of the blend, you have to see like how is each tobacco leaf harmonizing with each other, to see that you have a complete stimulation on your palate. Like you have acidity, salt, you have the sweetness, and you have the bitterness. Everything has to be stimulated at the same time. That is for the master blender, I would say, the first criteria, right? Then only after this is met, we talk about flavors. You know, I remember when I started being in this job, like I came and then said, look, oh, this cigar is chocolate, it's coffee, and they were looking at me like, okay, but first of all, it's very nice, stimulating blend and very balanced blend. I said, yes. And so basically you start with this, and then there comes the magic. I always call it the blending magic, right? Because we have over 80 different seeds that we have developed ourselves. I said before, we have over 7 origin of tobacco, and really to get this expertise, how each tobacco is mingling with each other, giving you a new taste experience, giving you a new strength profile. This is the magic behind, you know. And this is with our team in DR and Honduras. We are so glad. I mean, always when I'm there and we can try new cigar samples or new blends, it's just amazing. Just by changing one leaf, how much a cigar is changing. And this is really the magic that you have behind this, and really the expertise that makes it so exciting.
One of the things I love doing when analyzing blends is I will actually draw. We will draw a lot, and we will map out the tongue, the palate. You have your sweet taste goes in the front, your lateral has the salt in the front, has acid in the back, and then towards the back of your palate, you have your bitter. But you map it out, and then you say, okay, I'm going to be using this tobacco as base. And then, okay, this tobacco is going to stimulate in this area. So you basically draw on your tongue, in your palate, that this area is already filled. So basically you start adding tobaccos to the mix, and like Sam was saying, you try to make sure that every area of your palate is covered by 1 tobacco or 2 tobaccos. And then depending on what flavors you're trying to get, you say, okay, this tobacco has wooden notes, this tobacco has earthy notes, this tobacco has fruity notes, has acidic fruit notes, or has sweet fruit notes. And so you try to aim at what they're asking you, what the concept is with the tobaccos, and then at the same time filling up your map of your tongue. And then the other thing that you got to do is, if 1 tobacco is not enough in the bitter area, then you put in another tobacco on top of that bitter area. So, and then you say, okay, the bitter area has these 2 tobaccos as you draw. And basically now you're creating layers of flavors by different tobaccos, stimulating the same areas of the palate. And that's how you create complexity, and that's how you create new flavors, by mixing tobaccos that stimulate the same area of your palate.
We had a question concerning the particular cigar lines. Barton, would you like to bring up your question regarding Winston Churchill?
It really is an amazing cigar. It's by far my favorite, and you know, I've since I was in grade school, one of the first book reports I ever did was on Winston Churchill, and just had a true affinity for the man and learning about him through history. And I just wanted to know how y'all kind of went down the path of starting to develop the Winston Churchill. Obviously, that name alone throughout the world, you know, rings a bell. And kind of what's the history of that, the time that you took going down designing that? Just a fabulous cigar, probably my favorite, hands down. Thank y'all for producing it.
Thank you, Barton. Well, maybe I start, Klaas, and you can follow, because you know we had the first Winston Churchill line we launched in 2008 on the market, but it wasn't performing so well. So we thought, look, we need to focus more on the man, on Sir Winston Churchill, a man with different characters. He was a statesman, he was an artist, he was an aristocrat. He wrote more books than Shakespeare, you know, and we thought like, wow, okay. We have been in steady contact with Randolph Churchill, the great-grandson of Sir Winston Churchill. Got a lot of feedback from the history, as you mentioned, Barton, and really it was something that we felt like so proud to do this, but we felt also like, wow, we need to make this 100% correct. And so basically, if you focus on the different facets that Sir Winston Churchill had as a person, we were thinking, let's use tobacco from 4 different origins, and each origin is representing a certain character in the cigar. That's why you have around 30% from Nicaragua tobacco, giving a little bit this strength to it, that because Sir Winston needed to have strength in his daily tasks. You have the nice free Dominican tobaccos balancing it out, maybe when he was at home and switch off the brain from all the war strategy. You have the Mexican binder, which gives you a little bit this I would say ginger flavors, and you have a beautiful Ecuadorian wrapper. And all this blend, it was really, we wanted to create cigars of character, but not being too strong, but being really complex. And I think that is the most difficult task when you blend a cigar. Creating cigars that are not too strong, but are very complex, and that you can easily filter out the flavors, which I think you can very well when you enjoy a Winston Churchill cigar. That was with the classic line. And then if you look at later, we took it a step further. We say, look, so Winston had also a facet when it was dark outside, everybody was sleeping. He was still thinking about the war strategy, having a whiskey aside. And that was why we then thought, okay, let's have some original whiskey casks and ferment the tobacco in these whiskey casks. So we took the Condega tobacco from Nicaragua, fermented in for 5 months in the whiskey barrels. And you really have to see every 2 weeks you're turning the leaves in these barrels, and to give you like a little bit, how can I say, like a deeper aroma, like something that you're not used to in a cigar with this tobacco fermented in whiskey casks. And so you have these 2, for me, great lines, that and I don't know if Sir Winston would be alive, I'm sure he would have enjoyed those cigars as well.
The only thing I can add to it is, Sam perfectly described the original and the late hour lines. If anything that I want to add is that we did start with the Churchill family. The first launch of the cigar was in 2008. And we first started, I've met Randolph, but I also got the opportunity to meet his father. So the grandson of Winston Churchill, and they're all phenomenal family. They're just super interesting with so many stories. The grandson, Winston Churchill, came to my house when we were developing the cigar, and the whole night was filled with stories of where he had traveled, stories of the important people that he had met, and of course, stories of his grandfather. And that was just one of the best experiences we've had in developing a project. Just great people to work with.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
We had 2 questions from Reinhardt. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Do you want to bring these up, please?
Yes, 2 questions for Sam. Sam, I already asked
Hello,
you.
Reinhardt.
Hey, everything going well? Of course,
Everything
yes.
is good, thank you.
2 questions that I already asked you a few times in person. But okay, Davidoff discontinued my favorite Purodoro a few years ago because it was maybe too full-bodied. Can we expect soon a relaunch? And are more people demanding strong cigars?
Yeah, so basically, I think it's a funny situation. If you discontinue a cigar, everybody's asking about it. Like they're like, oh no, why did you do it? And we hear you. We get a lot of positive feedback. We have a lot of especially in Spain, a lot of consumers saying, oh, we want to have it back. So let's see what happened. I cannot tell you a little more, but we hear you and we try to satisfy you.
Thank you. My next question, Sam. Davidoff sold a few months ago their tobacco fields in Condega, Nicaragua. Why? And does Davidoff have other plans there in the neighborhood areas like Honduras, Danley or something?
So yes, you're right. We sold our fields in Condega. Why? Because how can I say, it wasn't really up to it was a little bit too much at the time. You know, we have Dominican, we have Honduras, we had Nicaragua, which was a trial that we made, but it wasn't up to our expectations. And we said, look, it's a pity, but let's let it go and focus on our production sites in Dominican Republic and Honduras. And that's why if you look at Honduras, we have also now our own tobacco process established in there. We have our own farms. We have also seed banks. As I said before, we have over 80 different seeds. We have now a seed bank in Honduras. And we really focus on the area of Honduras to create new varieties of tobacco by ourselves and having this expertise, again, linking to the philosophy of crop to shop. And really having Honduras and Dominican Republic and then other tobaccos we're buying from different origin at the moment is perfectly fine for us.
Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome, Konrad.
Klaas, I saw you were smiling on that Puradoro question. Do you have something to add on that?
No, it's like Sam was saying. Of course, we did relaunch we launched a cigar featuring Yamasa. The Yamasa farm, it is very important to many Davidoff blends, so it is definitely a love project. But it's a shame that Puro de Oro has had to go. But no, it's just I just smile so much because it's one of those questions, like Sam was saying, that we get on a very often basis. Like every single event I do, I get the Puro de Oro question. And when we discontinued it, at the time, the line had grown so big. We had made so many different shapes for it, and it kind of got diluted a little bit. What was interesting is that we were still producing like over 100,000 cigars of the Robusto and the Toro format. So it is an attractive line. We did know that there was a lot of people that still enjoyed it, but it was a good decision on the part of the company in many ways because the line was getting diluted. There was too many shapes and there was not enough focus on parts of what it should have been in the store.
And maybe just to add, I believe that the Davidoff Aficionado wasn't yet ready for Puro d'Oro at the time we launched it, because it was such a completely changed to the core. But now having, now we have Discovery in place, we have Iconic Pillar in place with Winston Churchill. I mean, if I would think back, launching it maybe now would have been more welcoming to our consumers. Yeah.
Also, I think always coming up with new lines and new expressions, at some point it can be a little overwhelming for the audience and for the smokers, right? I mean, that's one thing that you've always done perfectly well with, especially the white labels, is keeping that consistency and offering something that is it's just your friend, as you always say, and it's that one cigar that you enjoyed maybe 20 years back, and it's still on the market and you can still enjoy it. So I think maybe at some point there's just too much coming in, or it can get a little overcrowded.
Yes, I mean, we heard this feedback often. I believe when we launched the Discovery, then we launched the Winston Churchill, and it's true, we're not in a fast moving consumer market. It takes time for a cigar to establish in the market. It's around 5 years, and that's why you saw in the last years that there wasn't, like, we were focusing on our lines that we have, because as I said, I think we have a cigar for each palate, and this is important. We focus on also in the future, but of course always creating new blends with limited editions, maybe once in a while a new line, but really like not overwhelming, like you said, Rani, not overwhelming and not putting too much in the market, because at the end, it's maybe just like a little bit too much to understand or too much to try, or okay, this is again a new cigar, okay, and also for the retailer, he needs to have all the information, needs to suggest the cigar to you in a perfect way, and if you have too many, it's just like, it can become a little bit too much, yes.
And you have to understand that we were creating something. In the last couple of years, 2013 and on, we've been creating a whole new, not line, but and even yes, lines, but we've been creating a whole new menu for you. And we can't launch the whole menu at one time. We got to launch it quick, but also spread out. And like Sam was saying, it does take time to establish loyal fan base, and it does take time to establish a cigar in the market. And we do not want to be that company that brings out a cigar and then eliminates it, and then brings out a new cigar and then eliminates it. What we bring out is very well thought of, and it's supposed to be for the long run. You know, of course, there's the exception of limited editions, but the lines that we create are part of our foundation now. But it was a period of creation.
On the other hand, sometimes with limited editions, you have no choice, right? Because a certain type of tobacco might be limited, or you just have a small amount of that particular tobacco that makes a certain blend unique. How do you go about taking care of all that stock and making sure you have enough in order to bring something to the market?
So remember, we had recently launched Davidoff small batches, and that was exactly the idea behind it. You know, we have so many, let's say, inventory over $25 million US, you know, which for me or for Klaas or for our master blender is fantastic, you know, but for our finance team, it's like not so funny, right? But of course, so the beauty of it, if you think about a limited edition, it's kind of a playground for our master blender. You know, you can come up with new ideas using aged tobacco, see how this is impacting the blend. We are having our limited edition on the vintage pillar, so we are still able to use at least 10-year-old tobacco in filler, and this is just fantastic, you know. And this playground is it's just unbelievable. Of course, we you know, and that was also with the small batches. We say, look, instead of having all this tobacco lying sleeping in inventory, we want to get it out to everybody and make sure that you can try what is a cigar with so aged tobacco. How does it taste, you know? And here I think we are in a very good position to continue innovating on these tobaccos with a lot of age behind and perfectly at the summum of its quality and taste. Yes.
There was a question about the Cigar Journal 25th anniversary cigar as well. Some more information on that, probably. Can you share a little bit how that came to life?
Yes. So basically, when I met with my friend, my dear friend Reinhardt, and we said, look, for the 25 years, would you be willing, or shall we do something together? And we both said yes. Let's do it. And so again, a very exciting initiative, because, you know, 25 years of Cigar Journal, all the cigars that the Reinhardt has tested and the team has tested, you know, it wasn't like, okay, we give them, let's say, a standard cigar, you know. So it was, I would say it was a long process, because Reinhardt had a cigar in his mind that he wanted to have. We tried to rebuild it, but it's always difficult to rebuild a cigar that you had in mind, depending on, you know, maybe it was the mood and so on. And then we changed a bit direction, sending new samples, you know, and I don't know how many rounds we had of samples. I think it was 4 to 5. And then when we finally found the blend that we have today, we were all so satisfied. Reinhardt called me and said, okay, that is the blend together with Katja and everybody involved. And we were also satisfied also in Dominican. And if I hear that, when I got to read also that you really love this cigar, that makes me, that makes us all very, very happy and glad, you know. And, you know, I always, and I said to Reinhardt, you know, good things takes a little bit longer, you know. And I think this process was also part of trusting each other, you know. So we never gave up. We said, no, we're going to deliver you the cigar that you really, really love. And that was an exciting process and also exciting time. And I remember when we then enjoyed it together in Las Vegas, we were all very satisfied. And yes, that was a little bit the background about it.
Klaas, did you ever try that one in particular?
I actually left that question to Sam because I was not part of that project. But if you guys want to ship over a box, I would gladly accept it for you. I'll give you a rating as well, you know.
All right, next time we see that, I have one box left.
Klaas, how about your cigar? Do you wanna give us a little bit of insight on what you're tasting, your experience that you're having at the moment?
This is Aniversario number 3, and it's a classic. It's been around since I was a toddler. I like to believe that the Aniversario line is, in essence, the middle. It's the middle of all flavors that Davidoff can offer. It's the most balanced one. And when you look at Aniversario number 3, this one is bumped a little bit more. This one has a little bit more percentage of that piloto ligero. And for me, Aniversario number 3 is a cigar that creates a lot of wooden notes in the back. There's a tiny little bit of pepper, but I like to describe it more as spices, and I like to describe it more as floral spices. It is not something that overpowers up here in your nose. The acidity, the moisture that's created, I like to say it's more like, maybe not like a lemon acidity, but it's more like a green apple acidity. It's not overpowering, it's not astringent, it's not, you know, it's like a nice flow, a nice green apple when you bite into it, that it produces a lot of moisture. And then the sweetness, like I was saying with the spices, the sweetness is a very floral spice. It's like that sweet apple that you enjoy. I like to always give a strength to the cigar, or an intensity to the cigar, and for me this would be probably like a 6.5 out of 10. Out of the Aniversario line, it is probably the strongest one. And in a Toro format, I love how when it begins, it is very cool smoke because it's such a long cigar. But now that I'm halfway, the intensity has picked up, the smoke has gotten a little heat. So the intensity is picking up. My taste buds are tingling a little bit more because those wooden notes are a little bit more precise. Those spices are a little bit more precise than at the beginning. Can't wait to get to the last third because I think that's when more of a pepper is going to start coming out. Right now, the spices are very playful, are very jolly, are very, they tingle, they're a little tingle.
In general, how do you go about writing tasting notes or finding certain descriptions for what it is that you're smelling and tasting? I know there's certain people who say a cigar first and foremost tastes of tobacco, and then there's other people who have the most colorful descriptives that they give to their tasting notes.
I actually am not one of those people that are a fan of using descriptive adjectives. I know you guys in the media loves descriptive adjectives. I personally always, normally the first thing I do when I light up a cigar, besides a cold draw, is first and analyze the strength of it. And I always think how strong it is, because my job as somebody that's been trained to be a blender is to try to figure out what's inside of the cigar. I have something that people always tell me, Klaas, when you enjoy a cigar, you look like you're thinking. Sometimes it's like, Klaas, like lighten up, smile a little bit, like your face looks a little bit like in concentration, almost frustration. And it's because I am trying to think of what's inside the cigar. Normally, I analyze the first inch of the cigar. I'm analyzing the strength. I'm analyzing what areas of the palate are going to hit. I know that will evolve as I go. And then when I ash it, the first thing I do when I ash it the first time, normally only do this the first time, I look at the construction. So you can see in this case, it has a nice pyramid shape. You can see my screen. And that will tell me a lot of the construction, how well it was made. But that will also tell me what types of tobacco they use from what position of the plant they used. I can analyze how the ash is burning, what had full combustion, what had an incomplete combustion, what took higher temperature to burn. I can analyze how much percentage is of the top of the plant, how much percentage is from the bottom of the plant. And then I can start dissecting what the blender put into the cigar, and I can start imagining. And it is not till later that I kind of figure out the areas of the palate that are being stimulated that I actually start giving adjectives to what I'm experiencing. So I do it maybe a little bit backwards than some people in the media might do it. I analyze it from a manufacturer's perspective, from a blender's perspective. I think it's pretty neat.
Well, maybe I can share some thoughts here, since sensory and working around sensory perception, creating experiences is pretty much what I do on a day-to-day basis. I think for a lot of people, it's quite challenging to connect what it is they're perceiving through their mouth and their nose with their vocabulary, like the way the brain dissects all these different impressions and the triggers that it's getting. And for me, sensory is finding a vocabulary and the language that we can all share in order to just have a base of communication, to talk about what it is that we're experiencing. Because most often when I do tastings and seminars, people tell me, I get it, there's something here, I can smell it, I can taste it, but I don't know what it is. And what's missing is the link sort of from the perception to the brain and then backwards verbalizing the whole thing. And I think it's highly important that we all try to build up that vocabulary by just being open-minded and taking in all these different expressions that we have around us. So just smelling an apple attentively and thinking about why is a green apple different to a yellow or a red apple. And then when you build up that whole sensory portfolio, you're starting to connect dots and finding certain descriptives for what it is that you're perceiving. But ultimately what it does, it gives us all the opportunity to share our impressions and to share the wonderful moments that we're having.
You're very right. Like, if you have not had the opportunity to develop your repertoire of aromas and flavors in your memory, then you're not able to pick out certain flavors that somebody else might be able to pick out. And if you're not accustomed or if you don't remember a certain flavor, then you will definitely not pick it out. I have an example where I was doing an interview with Cigar Authority. They're located up in the Northeast of the United States. One of the people that was on the show with me is like, look, this, I think it was Special R702, I think we were having. And he's like, this cigar has chai tea in it. And he looked at me and I looked at him back with the biggest frustration in my mind. And he laughed. He's like, why are you so frustrated? It's like, well, I gotta be honest with you, man. Like, I don't drink chai tea that often that I can make that connection. So maybe you pick out chai tea, but I will never be able to make that connection because I don't drink it that often and I can't make that same association.
I think that's a very good point. And quite often when you read certain descriptives like heather honey or some things you've probably never experienced yourself, it doesn't have any relevance or meaning to you. But that's why I always say that perception and smelling and tasting and sensory is a highly subjective element, and there is no right or wrong. But I think it's nice to have the opportunity to share what it is that we're perceiving, and then we can all have an open discussion about it.
At the end, it's kind of a help, you know. We're trying to help with the aromas that we think that we sense in a cigar. But at the end, it's what I said before. It's your palate to, you know, if you think that the cigar is chai tea or is something different, then it is for you, you know. And everybody should respect this opinion, you know. It's basically helping with the flavors to give you an idea of the cigar, and then basically I think it's always exciting to then try the cigar and see, okay, do I taste the same or do I taste differently or why, you know. And I think that is the exciting part. But sometimes, you know, being too technical is also, you know, maybe a little bit too much. I think at the end you should sit down, relax, enjoy the cigar, and just enjoy the moment, you know, with the cigar, with yourself, with your friends, in a lounge, at home, you know, with a pairing, and I think that's the beautiful aspect of it.
and not have my frustrated face every time you smoke a cigar. I can assure you I'm enjoying the cigar. I'm just constantly, the moment I smoke a cigar, like my mind just automatically activates. Let's go to work. But I do enjoy the cigars. Something I do with the tasting notes that I read from different media, from different people that are qualifying cigars. What I like to do is when I read it, I will take an adjective and be like, okay, so they say chocolate. Okay, let's say I'm not tasting chocolate in my cigar, but they are tasting dark chocolate, bitter chocolate. So I immediately think, okay, they said the word chocolate. Chocolate, where does it hit in my palate? It normally hits the back of my palate. So that means they're probably describing a cigar that is bitter. If they say something like honey, and they say, okay, so honey, I might not be tasting honey, but I know from reading this description that the cigar will have sweet notes to it. And that's how I take the adjectives and I put them into my mind. And I say, okay, this adjective would be in this part of the palate, this adjective would be in the nose, this adjective would be this part of the palate. And I can map out or guess what they were feeling when they were having the cigar.
Mm-hmm.
And it also gives us an opportunity when you have certain adjectives that you were describing, or certain aromas and flavors. For me, it's a good basis to think of what could I possibly pair with that particular cigar, or how could I create an overall experience around that cigar to make it even more enjoyable and make something bigger out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you say chocolate, for example, why not pair it with a piece of bitter chocolate on the side? Or, there's always two different options here to contrast or to complement, but just taking that as a basis for cigar pairings. I was wondering, do you have any favorite pairings with your cigars, particular drinks that you enjoy the most?
Well, I'm just enjoying right now the Dalmore cigar malt whiskey, which I think goes very well with my anniversary #1. But when I say it goes very well, it's very subjective, What I try to explain is always like, maybe focus on a homogeneous pairing. Look at the flavors, the aromas of the cigar, and try to combine those same flavors, aromas with your drink you're choosing. And the drink, I'm saying, it doesn't need to be always alcohol, We had a beautiful pairing with our 702 series with Indian Assam tea, which had also this little bit this roasted malty notes to it, and it was just perfect. So again, pairing is very individual. I think when it pairs well, you get this wow effect that both the cigar and the drink is basically giving you a new taste experience. And for me, it depends a little bit on the occasion. Sometimes I prefer a craft beer if the cigar maybe is a little bit more dry, on the drier side. Or a rum, to get a little bit of sweetness to it, but it all depends, And Rani, you showed me how many possibilities we have in terms of pairing, and I think everybody should try. I know that our Jim was saying bourbon. Yes, bourbon. Why not? Bourbon has this nice vanilla note to it, the sweetness. Perfect. I mean, it's all. I can't say my favorite pairing, but yeah. I just think it's very interesting field to really try and make experiences and yeah.
And it depends on what you're trying to do too, because it depends on the environment. Normally, I enjoy a cigar and then pair it. So I normally like to smoke and then complement that experience. I like to enjoy a cigar and then complement it. Some people drink and then they use the cigar as a complementary aspect. So I've always put the cigar ahead of everything, or in most cases. For bourbon, the people that are saying bourbon, like Sam was saying, I try to match the experiences that I'm feeling with the cigar so that they're not fighting each other, they're not competing against each other. So with bourbon, normally sweet and spicy, depending on how high the alcohol content is, the proof it is, and I will try to match those spices and sweets. So Yamasa for me goes great with bourbon. But then if I have rye whiskey that is just a high percentage, or actually less percentage of corn, rye whiskey is more bitter, then I try to pair with something that is stronger. When it comes to Escurio, to answer Petra's question, I had an event in Oklahoma with James George in Oklahoma, where we had a Escurial and we paired it with tequila. So it can be anything, but tequila, and we did Reserva de la Familia. Reserva de la Familia, what's the brand right now? The most famous brand in the world. Right now I'm drawing a blank. Not Don Julio. What's the brand?
Padron.
Patron. Is it Patron? I forget right now. Reserva de la Familia, and that worked very well. And it actually pairs very well as well with a Mexican meal. So that one does very, very well. And like Sam was saying, it is very personal. But you don't want to have something that overpowers your cigar experience. So definitely always try to at least complement it. Or in my case, I didn't go for the bourbon. I went for a beer because I knew it wasn't going to destroy my experience with my anniversary.
Klaas, when you do tastings of new cigars for blending, for example, do you use something to cleanse your palate other than water, maybe?
I use thyme and water. I don't know. It's not that I don't take it seriously and I try to cleanse my palate in a certain way, but when I can jump from one cigar to the next and pick out the flavors, and I try to eliminate as much as possible the residual flavors from the first cigar. One of the ways I do that by removing residual flavors is by moving around the smoke in my palate, kind of like doing like a Kentucky chew, really like biting into the smoke, drinking some water, and that way I can move on to the next one and try not to have previous flavors overpower. But for me, water and thyme. If you're smoking one cigar right after the other, you might be skewed in your answers. And the other thing that we do is that we do smoke in the factory a lot of cigars side by side. So we have trained our palates in such a way that we can jump from one cigar to the next and identify where one cigar is hitting in your palate versus another cigar. So we're trained in that way so that we don't have to constantly be washing our palates, and we know what the differences are at an instant.
Mm-hmm.
And
obviously,
pardon, Sam, go ahead.
No, I think it's important also, when you taste many cigars, and you say, okay, this is my favorite, try it again in the morning when your palate is clean to see, okay, was it the same taste experience? Was the same stimulation I had before? Is it changing? And water is always good. I think milk or something oily, like olive oil, is also very good to clean the palate. Black tea, if it's not too strong, those are nice palate cleaner. If you want to taste a lot of cigars. But I have to say, if you taste at the same time more than 3 cigars, it gets difficult. Because the brain is getting tired with your palate is a little bit overused. So always when you think, okay, wow, that was a great cigar, try it again in the morning without on the empty stomach, and you feel much more on the cigar. And also what I always suggest is do a retrohale, blow out the smoke through your nose to get so much more from the cigar. The cigar is telling you so much more, and this is also very important. But I know not everybody can do it. So yes.
If you don't retrohale, something really nice is just smell the air. Just do this, smell the air. It might not impact you as much, but you can get more of those aromas in your palate. So you don't have to push smoke through your nose, but this is another way of doing retrohale, and it won't leave that sensation in your nose.
And I just saw, Klaas, you found the tequila that it was, right? The Reserva de la Familia. And also, Eric told us about a beautiful pairing that he did in October with 18-month-old Padre Azul and Añejo tequila. In general, I think tequila is a very interesting pairing. We had a feature on that in the last Cigar Journal. We did a comparative tasting with an abundance of cigars and tequilas, and even one mezcal to go with it. And the Padre certainly went super smoothly and very well. Speaking of Mexico, Klaas, do you have any particular experiences or stories with Mexican tobacco?
You have your Negrito San Andres, right? Your Negro San Andres. that's what Davidoff uses the most. We also have some Sumatra. And we use Sumatra in many other lines, brands that Davidoff has, that Davidoff company has. But I have one story with Negro San Andres. Negro San Andres is pretty powerful. And in Davidoff, for blending, we normally use it as a binder. So really, it's like 5% of the total weight of the blend, more or less, depending on the size of the cigar. And one time when I was actually training in the fermentation zone area of the company, I drove into the free zone where the factory is, and I had my windows down because I was smoking a cigar. And immediately, I'm talking about maybe like 500 meters away from where the fermentation building is, where the fermentation is happening inside, I could smell that they were flipping the fermentation pile for Negro San Andres. So especially when it's that powerful and it's that oily from the top of the plant, it has a very potent flavor. And when you're blending with Negro San Andres, you have to be very careful because if you use a lot of it, it can really overpower the cigar. And that first time I was working in the fermentation pile when they were flipping it, I mean, I could barely handle it. And I'm used to working in the fermentation area. So it's very powerful stuff.
We had some people writing in the chat that tasting more than 3 cigars is like smelling more than 3.
Yeah,
And at the end, you're not able to distinguish. Heiko says it just needs practice. Well, how many cigars do you smoke a day usually?
We do it a lot. We practice a lot with that. You go to the office, and actually, my dad does this all the time. You go to where he's sitting, his desk, and he'll have like 3 to 5 cigars lined up. And there's an ashtray that's about an arm's length away from him, but he will line up all cigars on the corner of the table. So the ash is like dropping on the floor or on his lap. And he doesn't want to go all the way to the ashtray. He'll just go right in front of him and just grab the cigars as he goes. And it's just practice more than anything else. But in regards to cigars that I smoke in a day, that depends. When I'm in the factory setting or in the office setting, I normally enjoy one full cigar in the morning, then one full cigar in the afternoon, and then maybe one full cigar at night, depending on what the environment is like. So the 2 to 3 is a good average for me on a normal office day. When I'm doing events around the world, traveling, it normally goes from anywhere from 5 to 8 in a day. So that is definitely a big jump. And I was doing a live Instagram video the other day on Davidoff Cigars Instagram where I was saying that I have in one occasion smoked 15 cigars in one day. I had 3 seminars that day. So that was a long day. I can tell you, even my palate was blown out by the end of the day. So that's not normal.
How about you, Sam?
Well, I'm also like, so I have to let's say to test a lot, right? Our own cigars, Cigar Journal tasting panel, Cigar Magazine in Switzerland tasting panel. And I think it's just great to see also what competitors are doing, in terms of cigars. But then I would say in general, because Basel headquarters, yes, we have a cigar lounge that you see in my background, but you cannot like just on your desk enjoy a cigar, So I would say maybe on average, I enjoy one to 2 cigars a day. With all the testing, but then while being in Dominican Republic, I think it's like if you're in Tuscany and you drink wine, it's kind of a natural thing to do, right? So you're just more open. You start in the morning with a coffee, and you look around. Okay, which cigar can I try now, right? And so in the Dominican, then we test around let's say 6 cigars a day. And then it's always like when you go out for dinner, the cigar you enjoy like during dinner or after dinner, and you don't need to judge or rate it. That's like, it's like kind of relaxing, And yes, but it's everybody on its own, I mean, a lot of people are enjoying more cigars, a lot of less, but I always say that you need to have time for each cigar. You know, if you don't have time, it's not worth lighting it up.
Yeah, I will rarely, if I don't think the occasion is good for it, if I'm not comfortable, if I'm not going to enjoy the cigar, I will rarely light up a cigar. It's just not worth it. I think it's almost like a lack of respect to the work that was put into it. You're just going to enjoy it and not pay attention to the flavors you're getting.
So in between, I just also want to say,
sorry, but of course, like Sigmund Freud always say, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. You just enjoy a cigar just to enjoy a cigar. It's the nature of our business.
yeah, absolutely. In the meantime, I just want to say hello again to all the people that are joining us. We had an incredible amount of people showing up here in the lounge, but also live on Facebook and live on Instagram. And we really appreciate you all being here. I would like to give you all here at the lounge one more opportunity to ask your questions. Please put them in the chat box or let us know. This is the opportunity to really ask Sam and Klaas all the questions that you're having. And it's a fantastic opportunity, and I'm really grateful and honored to have you both here with us today. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
167 cigars a day. How many days is the festival?
No, I think it's 1 week. This is Kirby, right? I think it's 1 week. I think.
That's like over 20 a day. When we do the Viaje al Origen trips to the Dominican Republic, which is a retailer group trip for retailers that come and visit the factory and learn about the product, when I do the cigar order, I calculate 10 cigars a head per day. 10 cigars per person a day. And normally there's always a little left over. The American group does a nice dent into it. Some other groups don't go into 10 cigars a day. But it's a challenge I always give the people that come visit the factory.
We have to add to Kirby's 167. He's not sleeping a lot in Cuba, so that's why he has a lot of time to enjoy all these cigars.
That's how he can double the amount. He doesn't sleep.
Them, it was me.
We also had this wonderful comment telling us time is the essence of luxury. I think that's really a wonderful quote. So my last question to you, gentlemen, what does time beautifully filled mean to you, and what is your perfect cigar moment?
Every.
First, that's. Do we get that question asked a lot? I can say something. Well, I think of maybe what my definition of time beautifully filled means, or what I can maybe ask maybe what is, or answer what is my perfect cigar. I've said this before, but for me, the perfect cigar is a cigar that you can have on its own by itself. And it doesn't need anything else to complement. You take a cigar and then you add other components to it to enhance the experience. But a cigar by itself should already be perfect. And it should already deliver everything that you are asking for in an experience. And it should be balanced, and it should be complex. So whenever I find a cigar and I say, wow, I don't even need water to drink or anything, and I'm just enjoying for a full hour the cigar, and it was perfect the whole way through, that was a perfect cigar. A cigar that doesn't need anything else to make the experience even more wonderful.
I think for me, when we came up with our new slogan, time beautifully filled, I think time for me is really the essence of like time it takes to create a cigar, and really time it takes to enjoy a cigar. And this time that I sacrifice for a cigar is something that I do personally. But as well, it is this moment in a day or in a week or in a month or in a year that is really enhancing the moment. And you know, if you can sit down and you think about, I don't know, about life, about you philosoph a little bit, you know, and I think if you then lay the cigar down in the ashtray and leave it die, and you think like, wow, that was a beautiful moment, an intimate moment with you and your cigar, but can be the same with your good friends, you know, and you enjoy the moment with your friends. And I think this moment makes it so special when you enjoy a cigar, you know, and can be any kind of cigar that is really, you know, making you feel satisfied and really happy.
My favorite cigar moments have always been when I share that experience with others. And being able to share with your friends, being able to share your favorite cigar, your cigar experience. And sometimes we even say that our cigars are not friends, are not just cigars, they are friends. They are the perfect companion. So being able to share my friends with other friends, there's nothing better than that. And I guess we can all agree, Reinhardt, Sam here, that today we're richer because we have right now tuning in over 50 people. And I mean, we could say that we have some reacquaintances, some friends we already know, but I'm sure we have new friends here. And you can definitely count on us anytime you have a cigar question, anytime you want to share, or in these moments that we have to do virtual curves, virtual live meetups. We're not alone. We're never alone when we have a cigar, and cigars also bring new friendships and bring new experiences to the table.
I have a question for Klaas. The origin of your father, is it Dutch? Because
Yes.
you all have Dutch names.
Yes, so my great-grandfather was from Amsterdam, and my family on my father's side originally comes from Holland. Interestingly enough, he moved to the Dominican Republic, married a Dominican woman, and never looked back. So much so that we don't even speak Dutch anymore. We've lost a lot of it. I still know some of the words, oma, opa. I, of course, know some of the bad words that you're not supposed to know, but are the first ones that you learn, right?
Kut met peren.
But we are originally of Dutch descent, and my name is Klaas Peter. I actually hold my grandfather's name, Klaas Peter Kelner, who was the first one, or one of the first in the family to actually work in tobacco. And I'm the only one that has his name, so we got to keep the legacy alive, right? And interestingly enough, if you look at history, if you look at companies that are tobacco-based, especially in agriculture and processing, most of these major companies have Dutch people working in them. They are normally the big tobacco buyers. You know, during the colony times, the Dutch colonized to make business, not to increase an empire, but more to create business opportunities with different islands in different parts of the world. So the Dutch mentality is very business oriented, and many of that Dutch people have ended up working in tobacco. And we have a lot of them to this day in many big important companies.
So we're an hour and 30 minutes into our lounge session at this moment in time. I would like to thank you all yet again. We're going to end our live stream via Facebook here at this moment. But thank you so much, Klaas, Sam, and all our guests. Thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolutely fabulous experience. And I'm so glad just what you described before, Klaas. This is exactly what our idea is here as well with the Light 'em Up Lounge and the community, to bring people together, and even during challenging times, just to unite all the people in the cigar family and to stay strong and enjoy and appreciate the finer things in life together. So thank you very much for taking the time, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Heini.
Yeah.